right, hello everyone. Welcome back to Effing with the Ineffable. I am Zoe.
I am Sleepy Piggleton. Man, look at how my eyes are just so.
It's like you never look in the mirror and you only look at yourself when we record this.
It's true.
That's at
I
least what
can
it seems
I
like.
can tell I need a little trim on the old beard. I'm starting to look like Grizzly Adams. You remember Grizzly Adams?
No.
No, nobody does. Look it up.
All right.
He was a mountain man from the in the 70s TV show.
Well, you are a mountain man, so that makes sense. Let me turn
I'm
my
a wannabe mountain man. I'm a city slicker.
Okay, I got to tell you.
Tenderfoot.
So we are preparing to move, which is exciting. We're gonna move
Yes, it is.
by you guys. So we're gonna have in-person effing with the Ineffables pretty soon.
Woohoo!
But we're trying to like determine, like what things aren't worth moving down all that way and whatever. So we are selling our TV right now, and because honestly, we've never had cable. We don't really use our TV. The only thing we use it for is like if we hook it up to our computer so that kids can watch a movie, but that honestly doesn't happen that much. And it's just like it's a big TV, and I mean it's 42 inches, it's not huge, but it's like, is it really going to survive the move? Who knows? So we're selling it, and I have to say I listed it on the Facebook Marketplace, and I literally have, I mean, 30 offers for this TV. It's really annoying because I like every half hour I'm getting like messages being like, is this still available? I want this TV, and they're all like making offers on it.
Are they lowballing it or what? Are you?
Some people are, some people are not. I listed it for 100, which was actually probably lower than I could have since I got 30 offers on it, which is kind of
Right.
frustrating. We were just talking about like it's hard to know, like price wise. You don't want to like overestimate something. You don't want to underestimate something.
Right.
So I actually went on and researched like this TV, how much has it been selling for on Facebook Marketplace in the past? And it seemed like it was around 100 that it was usually going for. But it was annoying because the first two people who were like, yes,
Use the fact that you've got these different bids and tell them, hey, I've got somebody at 100. Do I hear 110?
Well,
I hear 110. Do I hear 120? Just, use it as an auction site.
My husband said, and this would like makes a lot of sense. I don't know if this exists. It doesn't exist on Facebook Marketplace, but here's a free idea that you can invent. You should have a website where you can list something, and then people can bid on it, and you can see each other's bids, so that then like, okay, somebody else bid 120.
Called eBay. It already exists.
I guess that is true, but the thing about eBay is then I would have to ship it, and the Facebook Marketplace is just local people who are gonna pick it up.
You can go on eBay and say, no shipping, just local.
All right, so it does exist. I just need to use eBay instead of Facebook Market. I mean, like, it's fine. The annoying thing is we had two
eBay does build in that practice of being able to have the bidding so that people bid each other up, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The annoying thing about it was we had the first two people who were like, yes, I will come get it today. Like, one dude was like, I'm coming to get it today at 4:30. I'm bringing cash. Just never showed up. And then was like, oh, sorry, I flaked. It's like, okay. Then another guy was like,
sure you flaked too. Block.
No. Then another guy was like, okay, I'll give you 70 for it. I was like, well, I already have a bunch of offers for 100, so you need to give me 100. He's like, okay, I'm coming tonight, 9 p.m. Never shows up, never says anything. Then the next morning is like, hey, I can come get it this morning for 70. I was like, why would you think that that's gonna work? Like, I have literally 30 other offers for 100. I'm not gonna give it to you for 70. So it's like, the price is now 120 because I have an offer for 120. If you can come get it in the next 2 hours for 120, it's yours. He's like, nah. So anyway, now finally somebody's supposed to come get it today in like an hour and a half. We'll see. She's at least been responsive. So I don't know. I just want it out of my apartment, to be honest.
That's and that was when I got burned on the Craigslist thing for the truck. Um, it's interesting because the guy I sold the truck to said, "Oh, I don't sell anything on Craigslist anymore." It's like, because there's people like you on there. Is that
If you don't know what my dad's talking about, he sold a truck on Craigslist to some guy. He gave him a check, and then the check never cleared. So now my dad's in this whole battle trying to get his truck back.
trying to get the money for the truck? The guy still got the truck, so it's essentially stolen, or I guess the actual charge would be uttering and publishing.
Yeah,
uh,
basically just writing a false check.
Saying that he's got money that he doesn't have and saying that he's going to pay for something that he then didn't pay for. So anyway,
that's why my husband was like, if anyone shows up with a check, we're sending them away. We're not
say nope,
check.
No checks.
I mean,
cash,
it's only
cash on the barrelhead.
It's only $100. It's not that much, but
that's those two other vehicles that I sold. I was kind of weirded out because people showed up with these stacks of 20s or $100 bills. It's like, this one person gave me like 220s.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a huge stack of 20.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is a lot of money. And, they just counting them out. It's like, holy cow. All right.
That's what you got to do if you want to sell something.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like, okay, well, bring cash then.
Unless, Venmo is an easy way to do it because that's like instant and like it's guaranteed. But
yeah, that's how we paid for. That's how we paid for the Durango.
Yeah, you're a little less technologically advanced.
Yeah, I haven't been in that much circulation as far as a lot of the technological stuff, but Mom had Venmo on her phone, so we Venmoed for the guy to buy the Durango, and it's like, well, okay, it cleared like within 30 seconds or something. It's like, oh,
that's the nice thing about it. It's so easy. It's so secure. It's not like, you're not going to lose the cash or whatever. It's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hurt my head yesterday and it just hurts all the time, but I'm going to push
There's supposed to be bloody jello oozing out of your forehead.
My little daughter, my 2-year-old, is always saying when she gets a cut, bloody jello, because that's what my Smokey Piggleton likes to say about blood coming out. Says, is there supposed to be bloody jello coming out? Which is really gross.
But actually what it does, I mean, you could freak out. You could be as anxious as they are when they hurt themselves.
Yeah.
Or you can just be calm and say, wow, that looks like really healthy blood. You are really a strong person. And just calm them, tell them they're fine. Whether they're fine, they might be dying, but tell them they're fine. Give them the life is beautiful, pretty varnish, and help them to just feel better. It's more helpful to die happy than it is to live in agony and misery and fear.
And like freaking out, even if somebody is seriously hurt or really dying, like freaking out is never gonna help. It's never gonna help anything.
Right.
It's hard. Like, I'm actually pretty good when my kids get hurt about not freaking out. I wouldn't say I'm like necessarily like making jokes about it or, like whatever. But you
don't have to make jokes, but just be reassuring.
Yeah.
Just say, oh, I bet that looks like it hurts a little bit, but your blood looks so healthy, and I know that you're a healthy person, and you just got a little rip in your skin. It'll get better.
Yeah. And most of the injuries my kids get are like scraping their knee, bumping their head, like stuff that they're gonna be fine from. The only like real injury I can remember where I was actually worried was like when my daughter sprained her ankle on your trampoline.
Oh yeah, because did it swell up?
It's swelled up and she couldn't walk on it, and we were nervous because it was right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and we were like, oh my gosh, we're gonna go to the
We're
ER
gonna
and
have to go to the emergency room and expose ourselves to
yeah,
this.
we're gonna get COVID because it's gonna be everybody there thinking they have COVID. But
And and at that time, COVID was like put forward as like, well, it's a little worse than the bubonic
yeah,
plague, but
exactly.
it's not quite as bad as Ebola. You don't bleed out of every orifice instantly, but you will die.
But pretty
Yeah,
close. Yeah,
you
exactly.
will die in great agony, but it won't be instant. It'll take a little time. It's like, I'm
Along
gonna
with the
die. Let's
worst.
just make it quick. Come on, let's.
Oh
It's
man.
cruel to prolong the misery.
Yeah.
But now we find out Corona's not nearly as fatal for young, healthy people as everybody thought.
I think like for everyone, it's got a survival rate of like 99.7% or something. I mean, it's
I think for older folks and for folks with metabolic disorders and stuff, it's a little bit more
yeah. I mean,
threatening. But
there's certainly like a difference in the survival rate among different groups, but I'm just saying like I think that's the overall survival rate of COVID.
right. I'm not
Well,
using my Green Bay Packer cup because Aaron Rodgers hates Green Bay, so I gotta hate Green Bay now.
is he like
That's not gonna happen.
is he
Big
leaving
whiner.
Green Bay?
Huh?
Is he leaving Green Bay
He
or
says he wants to, and I suppose they'll have to let him. I mean, if he doesn't want to play for your team, let him go. I mean, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean,
What are
'cause
you gonna do? Try to keep him under contract and try to force him to play for you? That's a recipe for trouble.
yeah. Well, what are they
He
gonna do?
wants to go
They have
play.
a different quarterback?
Yeah, they'll have to use the guy that they drafted last. Apparently, that's what he's upset about. Is they drafted a quarterback in the first round last year when he wanted them to be drafting a wide receiver, somebody who could help out on offense and like really, you know, get the team to be more competitive with him as quarterback. Instead, they started looking toward the future. They said, well, Aaron's 36 years old. Statistically, guys go downhill when they're in their late 30s.
Yeah.
So we're going to look to start to replace him, not instantly, but after a couple of years. But he got offended by that or whatever. He felt like they weren't making a commitment to him, and so now he's wanting to leave, which is okay. I mean, he's a California guy. He's been remarkably tolerant of Green Bay culture and weather and everything, considering that he's from San Francisco. He's a California guy. I mean, that's got to be a shock to his system. He wanted to be drafted by the 49ers in
Yeah.
the first place so that he could play for his hometown team. But that didn't happen. So
Honestly, the drama and the like self-aggrandizingness of professional sports in general it's like the Real Housewives almost. It's like it's seriously like oh
it's narcissism. It's but we were just talking about markets with the whole real estate and everything. When there's only a few that can
yeah,
do what they do at that level, they become overvalued and they start to believe that they are uh, the
God's
the
gift.
sun and the sun and the moon and the stars. And it's like, hey, if people don't give me my way, I'm gonna have a tantrum.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, Real Housewives.
Honestly, it's like the drama is absurd. But whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
They really are entitled people, aren't they? They just feel like everything. Why isn't everybody doing my bidding before I have to ask?
I think celebrity is a hard thing to live with. Like fame
Yeah.
and celebrity. I think that it's I mean like
Speaking for myself, it's hard to be humble. It's
I like even Jordan Peterson says like he went from relative obscurity to like
right
being one of the most well-known people, and it's like it's really hard to not like even he it's not like
to
he
not start thinking too highly of yourself.
and like scrutinize every move you make all the time because you know
Yeah,
that people are watching you. Like
right.
it's easy for us to just BS on this show because we have some loyal watchers and like not a lot of just like general
We,
people.
do we? Do we have any loyal
Yes, we
watchers?
do. Yeah, one of my mom's cousins is a frequent commenter.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I have Dad, I have so many friends, not to start getting fame into your head. I have so many friends who are like, I wish I could meet your dad. He's so funny. Like because they watch the show. So I mean, yeah, we have people who watch the show.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's hard to be humble. And you got this. You got the moneymaker.
I don't know though. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how you know, like, do you remember when we went to, okay, so my first, like, big concert I ever went to was the Jonas Brothers
The Joe Bros.
back in middle school. And remember who opened for them? It was Demi Lovato.
Right.
And now, like, Demi Lovato is, like, totally different person than she was back when she was opening for the Jonas Brothers.
As are the Joe Bros. I mean, one is
Yeah.
married to the Game of Thrones woman, and another one is married to some exotic Asiatic girl, and is a model. Kevin, I think, is still kind of down to earth, right?
He got married a while ago, and
Yeah,
I to be
but
honest,
nobody famous.
I have no idea like who I don't follow them anymore. It's been a long time since middle school. Anyway, the whole point of this is I saw a clip of Demi Lovato because she had a bunch of issues with drugs. She's
Yeah,
in
eating disorders and suicide
yeah,
and drugs
she's had a
and
lot of issues. But she was on Joe Rogan, and I don't really watch Joe Rogan that regularly that with
that's an odd pairing.
Demi Lovato and Joe Rogan.
I would think.
He has all kinds of people on his show, like all kinds of people. I mean,
Yeah.
he had like he had
I guess when you get a show of that,
yeah.
you can get all kinds of interesting guests.
Oh yeah, I mean, he had Bernie Sanders on his show. He had Tulsi Gabbard on his show. He has Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, and like he just gets and like weird like mushroom experts because he's all into like DMT and whatever, and he gets like doctors, and he gets like tons of people of like all kinds of different backgrounds on his show, which is interesting. But anyway, it was
You could maybe get your brother on here talking about mushrooms. He's apparently really interested in them.
I don't know if he's got enough expertise to have anything interesting to say, but
Well, he says that mushrooms are the basis of life or something. He's all into this mushroom mycology stuff. I don't know. Whatever. It's cool. I'm glad he's interested in something
something.
that'll probably expand him outside of Little Caesars.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, the whole point of this was that Demi Lovato was talking about how like as a celebrity she has to guard everything she says all the time. Like she can't ever just like talk openly and be herself, and it's like yeah, that would not like you're basically lying all the time.
Well, maybe not lying, but maybe white lying, maybe
Yeah, like just feeling,
not telling the whole truth,
yeah,
not feeling free to just speak your piece.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be a tough I wouldn't want that.
Yeah, that would be a miserable experience, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of, not a surprise that people go crazy or um, start thinking a lot of themselves and whatever, especially when people are, there's a lot of people in Green Bay who love Aaron Rodgers and like will tell him that he is the best thing ever, that he is the sun, moon, and stars.
I I I would say that to him.
And when you start,
I was very impressed at how well he did on the Jeopardy.
I didn't watch any of him on Jeopardy, but
He did a good job. He's a charming guy. He's very charismatic. He's good looking. He's very athletic. He comes across as at least able to fake humility.
yeah,
So, I don't know. He's gotten a little big for his britches now, it seems like, but who cares? He's in, whatever.
yeah, it doesn't matter.
But speaking of humility, May is the month of Mary,
Yeah,
the paragon of humility.
yeah, the boast of our race, right?
Yes, yeah, the solitary boast.
Yeah,
Wasn't that what they said? The solitary boast.
I don't know.
The only thing that we really have to be proud of
Yeah,
is this humble woman who says, "Let it be done to me according to your word."
yeah, her fiat. We did a May crowning last week with my kids, where we, made a little flower crown for Mary and crowned her, and that's always a fun thing. My 2-year-old kept saying, "Mary's so good. Mary's
Yeah.
so good." She's so silly. She likes looking around in our church and seeing all the religious, like the stained glass windows and the statues and whatever, and she'll say, "Mary, Jesus," which is good that she recognizes that. But yeah, did you have like a specific thing you wanted to talk about, Mary? We could talk about like the Marian consecration or whatever you want to talk about.
Well, let's just talk generally about Mary because I think there's probably a lot of people who are like, "What's the deal with Mary? Why are the Catholics so hot on Mary?"
Yeah, why do they worship her?
Yeah. Okay. So Socratic, why do we worship her?
So, what's the definition of worship?
I don't know. To put in the place of God, or to treat as though they were God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We certainly don't do that for Mary.
I mean, but here's the thing. I think that we do that all the time with things that are much less worthy than Mary.
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. We do it with, like
Demi Lovato.
It's very hard as a mom sometimes to not do that to my kids.
To adore them as something more than human.
Not even just adore, but like think about them more than I'm thinking about like how to take care of my kids more than thinking about how am I serving God. And that like that's a real struggle I think that's a struggle of any vocation. Like I'm sure that there are priests who are like, I spend all my time in financial meetings and like answering emails and whatever, and I'm not like spending time giving God the proper like place in my life. Like I think it's hard in every vocation to keep God in the proper place. But yeah, to go back to your point, yes, I think worship is putting something in the place that only God deserves, right? And we don't do that for Mary. We don't
maybe some people do. Maybe that's part of the problem, is that some people conflate Mary with God. Because Mary's the mother of God, then she must be somehow on a par.
Yeah.
Clearly, she's not. She's
Yeah.
not. She's a creature like you and I.
Yeah.
Um, and as is everybody else. Um, so it's a matter. The value of God relative to God's creatures is infinitely vast.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, if you if you like compare it on like the have you ever seen that website where it's like the scale of things?
Yeah.
And you keep scrolling through and you get down to quantum foam, which is like 10 to the negative 60 microns across or something like that. And then you go out and it's like, okay, the Milky Way galaxy is 10 to the 300
Yeah.
meters or something like that. And there's all this. The relative scale is we're dust.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're
We're somewhere
dust.
in the middle.
we're we're stuck in a small body in a small period of time on a small planet, and if it wasn't for God's love, we wouldn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And
And
so we have to keep giving to God everything. Now, relative to me, Mary is awesome because why?
well, because she, I mean, was without sin, first of all.
God made her awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
He needed something perfect in order to be a vessel for his son to come into the human sphere.
Yeah.
He needed a perfect human vessel uh, for Jesus to be born into this world of time and space and flesh.
Yeah.
And so he took some of the merits of Jesus, some of the redemptive, salvific merits of Jesus, and he applied them to Mary before her birth. She
Yeah.
was conceived. We believe that she was conceived without sin, that she never had a taint of sin. She was a perfect container for God to come into the world.
Yeah.
Now that's a great honor that God bestowed upon her. We just recognize
Yeah.
that God so honored her to be, you know, like Elizabeth says, and what makes me worthy to have the Mother of our Lord visiting me,
Yeah.
and Hail Mary, full of grace. There's all those um, indications that she was um, blessed, and all generations will call her blessed, and we
Yeah.
do. Holy Mary, Mother of God, blessed
Yeah.
art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. You know, but she's blessed among women. She's not blessed at the same level as Jesus. So
Well,
that's and that's where Protestants get hung up, is that, like, hey, anything that kind of threatens your complete adoration of Jesus as God, anything that competes with that is looked on as being kind of dangerous.
and I
It
think
makes
that
you
that's
it makes you
actually,
likely to lose track of how infinitely awesome God is.
and I think that that's not a bad point, actually. Like, I think that there are a lot of people who probably do revere Mary. I don't know. Can you really revere Mary too much? I mean, maybe. I think there's a lot of people who think about Mary much more than they think about Jesus, and think about the saints much more than they think about, and like the saints are a whole different level, because the saints are fallible people, like
Mhm.
Mary was the best of the saints, but she was without sin. The saints, they were people who had, you know, tons of sins and different lives and whatever. And
Some of them were just like flat out criminals who, changed,
yeah,
who who got converted,
I
who
mean, think about St. Paul.
who opened their hearts, and the Holy Spirit came in and made them holy.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I think that's good in a way, because we need, like, it's hard to relate to somebody who's without sin and perfect. Like,
It is.
it's
Yeah.
hard to relate to Mary and be like, when I'm yelling at my kids, to be like, you know, Mary probably didn't yell at Jesus in the way that I'm yelling at you right now.
Probably did.
I mean, I guess it
Probably needed his little fanny warmed up a time or two. He was human. He was human.
I mean, if I lost my kid for 3 days and then found them and he was like, "What? You didn't know I would be here?" I'd be like, "You better get your butt outside right now, because this
You're
is
heading
not
for a smack. You're heading for a smack bottom. You are.
exactly." So I think it's hard. I mean, it's hard to relate to God. It's hard to relate to Jesus and Mary, and I think that's part of the beauty of
Mary is somewhat less abstract
yeah.
than Jesus.
Yeah. And
You know,
I think that's actually part of the beauty of Christianity. Like, you know, in Judaism, you have a relationship with God. But God is a hard entity to have a relationship, because he doesn't have a body. He doesn't
he's
have
he's a whispered voice in the midst of a whirlwind. He's a burning bush that is not consumed. It's like he's the ineffable. He
yeah.
is the absolute
Yeah.
ineffable.
And
Yeah.
that's why, like, you know, and that's important to recognize, because just because it's hard to grapple with doesn't mean that that's not true. And God is, you know, God is above us, and God is real, and we do need to have a relationship with God. But it's hard as fallen corporeal human beings to have a relationship with God. And that's why we get read the Old Testament. It happens a million times. They get hungry, they get uncomfortable, they start losing sight of things, and they instantly forget God, because it's hard to remember something ineffable when you are suffering with corporeal needs, you know? Like, that's a hard thing to do. And that's why, like, the beauty of Christianity is we believe that God gave us a person to relate to, who is Jesus, but also another person to relate to, which is Mary. And that interesting dynamic, which I think Catholicism gets more than Protestantism, because they revere Mary so much, is that there is a difference between men and women. And I think that those, like, the feminine aspects of Mary and the masculine aspects of Jesus, like, show us both as men and women how to act. Like, I'm supposed to emulate Mary as a mom, but I'm also supposed to emulate Christ. And you are just the same. You're supposed to emulate Mary and Jesus. Like,
Mary is the ideal disciple. She was
yeah.
perfectly coherent in attaching her will to that of God. She completely subverted her will to God, and so she was like we were reading the 10th step of AA.
Yeah.
Pray to know the will of God and the power to do it. That's what Mary is all about. Mary is
Yeah.
the ideal of that. Pray to know the will of God and the power to do it. Like, whatever it is that you want me to do, whatever brings glory to you, Lord, whatever serves your purposes, let me do it. Put it in my heart, put it on my mind. Make me your servant. I want to be your humble handmaiden.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, like, you know, talking about the perfect disciple. Like, when you said that, it made me think of, once again, we talk about Jordan Peterson nonstop, but Jordan Peterson has talked about how if you think about the
What's
story,
this we? You got a mouse in your pocket?
if you think about the story of Jesus as an archetype, as an archetypal story, you know, it's like the ultimate innocent person suffers the worst fate imaginable. And part of that fate is that every person who loved him on earth forsakes him, even God forsakes him. But it's interesting that the one person who stood by Jesus the whole time, I mean, technically, I guess you could say John, the beloved disciple, was there, but I think, I don't know, was he there the whole time? He was certainly
I
there
don't
on
know.
the cross, but he wasn't walking the streets with him, right? The one person who was there the whole time, the one person who actually never forsook Jesus was Mary. I mean, like, it's like the archetype of the mother is like, no matter what, no matter what, you're gonna like stay by your kid. That I think that's such a powerful image of like what it means to love somebody and what it means to love someone as a mother. And it's not just like, we're not called to be a mother only to like our children, you know, like we have a like a mothering type relationship with lots of people. And I mean, like, you have a fathering type relationship to other people in your life, like
And the mothering. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I think that's an interesting
I
thing.
know Caitlyn Jenner,
I think that's an interesting thing that like
but
we,
everybody's got both that nurturing and that correcting. You know,
yeah,
the mercy and justice, trying to balance that out, trying to give people what they need of mercy and what they need of justice in order to be their best selves. I mean, that's the challenge of parenting.
yeah, yeah, it's hard to be that.
Correcting with charity.
It's hard to be that as one person in all situations all the time. And that's why
Yeah.
single parenthood is basically impossible to do well. I mean, like, if you're a single parent, I have great respect for you. I'm not saying that you are a bad parent or something, but I'm saying the challenge of doing that, even with two people in every situation, of trying to balance the mercy and justice. I mean, there's lots of times where, especially when I'm not feeling good, when I'm tired, whatever, where I'm just like, I can't decide right now if you should, you know, have X or Y. So go ask your dad, because it's like, I actually just
I
like,
don't know if you need a hug or a kick in the ass. So
honestly, sometimes it's
go
like,
talk to your dad for a minute, because I got confusion.
yeah, I think that that's a really hard thing to balance out. And that's why, like, in the ideal situation, we usually have two parents in a at least two parents. It's even easier when you get stuff like grandparents and aunts and uncles. It takes a village, right? Like, all those
That's what Hillary said.
all those people who are helping you. I mean, so I am in book club, which I talk about every month practically. And right now last night we had a book club meeting for the book. Sorry, one second.
Crime and Punishment.
Crime and Punishment, for the first half of Crime and Punishment. So basically just the crime part. And I did not read the whole first half, so I can't really speak that much about the book. But one of the interesting things about the discussion that we had was, I don't know if you know, do you know the story of Crime and Punishment? For those who are watching,
Somebody commits a crime and then they get punished, right?
for those who are watching who might not
That's
know,
the 10 word précis.
I mean, even on the back of the book, it starts off by saying our main character, Raskolnikov, murders a woman and her sister. Like, that's literally on the back of the book, so it's not a spoiler. But a lot of the book is, I mean, a ton of the book is like his internal struggle, his internal
How could
struggle.
he do this? How could I do this? What does this
And
mean about me as a person?
can you live with that? can you live with that afterwards?
Should you live with that?
Yeah. And it's really interesting, you know, Dostoevsky's making a point, like points about nihilism and whatever. And once again, I can't speak totally to the book because I haven't even read the first half of it yet. But a huge point of discussion that we had last night was like, would he have done this crime if he had not been isolated from everyone else in his life? He was a person who was utterly alone. He pushed everyone else away. And community is actually really important, not just for like, you know, feeling good and having a good time and whatever, but like if you don't have dialogue with other human beings, it's hard to know, like, if you start veering off on a bad path, it's not easy to always know to correct that yourself, especially if you've got underlying mental illness, if you're poor and hungry like Raskolnikov is, if you have a bunch of social depravity going on in your life, which, I mean, they had that in the 1800s in Russia, and we have that now. There's a lot of messaging in the culture about which way is okay and live your truth and whatever. Well, live your truth is not a good guiding principle to know if I need to self-correct, because live your truth could mean any choice that I make could be justified, right? And that's
probably better to say watch your butt than live your truth.
I mean, I think that dialogue is really important, because sometimes we've talked before about biases too. It's like you can start getting down on a path of like, okay, I believe, like, let's take like
which is why Mary was conceived without sin, because then she didn't have that proneness to sin. She didn't have anything that messed her up along the way. We all are born with concupiscence and the tendency to be sinners and the tendency to be blind to our sin.
Yeah.
And if we don't have somebody who occasionally raises an eyebrow and makes us feel like, oh, did I say something weird? You know, it's easy for us to get weird and to just go off on a real weird tangent, and pretty soon we're, you know, Unabomber level weird out in the woods sending rice into people. Yeah.
And that's why it's actually, you need to have friends in your life who are willing to say no to you. Like
what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah, to be like, you're wrong. And that's a hard thing. That's actually a hard thing to cultivate, because when you're first becoming friends with somebody, especially as an adult, it's like it's hard to maintain friendships as an adult, especially when, you know, I'm a busy mom, I have other friends who are busy moms. It's like, it's hard to maintain a friendship. And you don't necessarily want to like push someone away with all your like strong opinions and crazy beliefs and whatever.
You don't want to be honest with them and say, there's some things about you that are really weird. I'm making some real judgments about you.
Because there are things
like, okay, tell me what they are. I'm glad to hear about it. I need to know this. The only time I ever look at myself is when I'm on Zoom calls. So it's good for me to be on Zoom calls. It's like, oh man, I need a haircut and a beard trim, and I need to clean up this room. My goodness. Otherwise you become blind to it. You get stuck in your sin, and there's these unrecognized tendencies that tend to magnify as you let them go, and then you become weirder and weirder, and pretty soon you are ready to kill somebody.
Yeah, because you start thinking like he was entrenched in a nihilistic ideology, and you start thinking like life doesn't matter. And he also, you know, was really interested in the idea of the Ubermensch, the Superman, who's able to like rationalize anything and overcome his, you know, like all this like crazy.
anything I could do, I should be allowed to do. There's a
Yeah.
freedom to express myself that I'm, if I'm able to consider it, then I should be able to do it.
And
It's
like
like,
when you start going down that nihilistic path, you start thinking, I am there is no God, so I am the greatest thing. So
mhm.
everyone else is subject to my will, right? Like will to power, like the greatest force is exerting my will on the universe. And you start thinking, who's this old woman? She's a usurer. She is a kind of a nasty lady, and she's got money, and I need money. So why shouldn't I kill her? I'm more important than she is. And anyway, we're kind of going down on a path about crime and punishment, but I don't even know how we got on this talking about Mary, but maybe we should go back to Mary. I don't know.
We got on this path talking about Mary because you were saying how important it is to have uh, community and have people to answer to and people to keep us on the straight and narrow and people to just reflect off of. If you don't have anybody to reflect off of, you don't know how goofy you're getting.
Well, and also if you don't have an ideal that you're aiming at, then any path that you go down could be the right path. Like once again, if I'm just living my truth and there is no objective truth, then any path that I veer down could be my truth. But an ideal is always a judge, right? Like that's why Jesus is a judge, because he is an ideal. And in the same way, to an extent, Mary is an ideal, and she therefore is a judge, because we always have to say, like, are
She
we?
never got off track.
Yeah, she was always in. She was always focused in the right direction. She was always pointing true, right? Like that's what true means, is that you're pointing toward the center, toward the bullseye. And she was always pointing toward the bullseye. And I think that if we use her as a guide, that doesn't mean that we need to worship her and say that she is equal to God, but she can still be a judge and be our.
She can be our ideal. She can be the pattern that we emulate and really try to match. And the thing that really made her always true was she never asked, what do I want? She always asked, what does God want
Yeah.
me to do? And so she was praying constantly for the knowledge of the will of God and the power to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what kept her in constant conscious contact with God, where she was always on the right path and she never veered. And so she never feared to stay with Jesus.
Yeah.
Everybody else ran away, it's like, here comes the bad guys. It's like, oh, you have little faith, you
Yeah.
know if you keep your eyes, like Peter walking on the water, if you keep
Yeah.
your eyes on Jesus, you can walk on the water. If you start to think, hey, wait, I'm Peter,
Yeah.
and I forget about Jesus and I'm more focused on Peter, you're sinking. You got nothing to hold on to, because you're not going for something higher, something beyond yourself always.
You're not
And that's
aiming true, right? You're
right.
veering from the path. And oh gosh, what was I gonna say? The one of my favorite lines in the whole Bible is from John chapter 6, after Jesus talks about the bread of life, how he is the bread of life, how you have to, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you cannot have eternal life.
You don't have life in you. Yeah.
And there's a great part in there where all these disciples start to leave. All these people who were following Jesus leave him, and he turns to his apostles and he says, like,
You
are you
guys out
up
of here too?
Yeah. And he's not backtracking. He's not saying, let me really explain to you what I mean.
Just kidding.
He's saying, this is it. So are you in or out? And Peter says, like, one of my favorite lines in the whole Bible, which is like, to who else do we turn, Lord?
Right.
I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God.
You have the words of eternal life.
To who else do we turn? And I feel like,
where would I go? Where would I go? This is the best. This is the best it gets. Yeah, it might suck right now. It might feel like this. Wait, this isn't how I would have set it up.
yeah.
But if this is how it is, if this is what it needs to be, who am I to question it?
Yeah.
Who am I to just, you got to get like Job and say, who am I to ask God why he does the things he does? I can't keep the ocean in its bounds. I can't create the mountains. I can't stop the rain. I can't, do anything. Who am I to ask, why are you doing it this way, God? I just have to say, okay, help me know your will, help me do your will.
And I think that the beauty of that statement is like, yeah, Peter says that, but Mary lives that. Like,
right.
He is the person who is like,
he never had to say it.
Exactly, because she lived it. She was like, I believe what God said about you, and to who else will I turn? And that's why she always keeps her eyes focused on Jesus. And that is, yeah, she's just the best. Mary's the best.
It's like that great saying, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words.
Yeah, yeah.
Peter occasionally found it necessary to say things, and usually the things that he said were just kind of screw up things, like, Lord, let's make 3 tents, one for you, and let's stay up here on the mountain forever. And Jesus is like, no, Pete, that's not how we're going to do it. We got to go back down. And it's like, heaven forbid that you do that. Get behind me, devil. Don't be talking like that. You don't know what you're talking about.
And I think that sorry, I just lost it. I lost it.
Sorry, I talked over you.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But yeah, that's the great thing about Mary, is that she is just she didn't need to say a lot of things.
Oh,
there's not
there's
not a lot of things written about her in the Bible other than she was there at the beginning, she was there at the end, and she was a constant presence.
Yeah.
Hey, Jesus, your mother's outside. Okay.
That's what I was gonna say is, Peter says a lot of stuff in the Bible, and like you said, some of it's good and some of it's bad. But it is interesting that, Mary gives such an incredible example without saying much. I mean, like, what does she say? She says her fiat in the beginning before, she says, like, let it be done to me.
How can this be? I've never known man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she says yes, and then she. When is the next time? Is it at the wedding in Cana, where she says, "Do whatever he tells you"?
Do whatever he tells you to do.
Yeah, and then, I mean, she's at the end where he says, "Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother."
We don't hear her say anything.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, she gives it. Yeah, you don't have to use a lot of words.
Like Joseph.
Yeah.
He was a man of few words, but he was quote stated to be a just man.
Yeah.
Can't do better than that.
Yeah.
Shut your mouth and do the right thing.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about, so just do whatever Jesus tells you to do and not worry about it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you were talking about how the most faithful seem to suffer the most. You look at the Pietà and you just realize, oh, the heartbreak that must have been. Her only son, her husband's dead. Now her only son has been killed unjustifiably in a horrible way.
Brutally.
And here she is holding his body. There had to be just such a sense of loss. And um, I imagine she did not despair, that she was still saying, God, God help me, help me to do what you need me to do through this. Uh, but I would have been like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you? This is not anything that I signed up for.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, there's that heartbreaking part in The Passion of the Christ where
Right,
he
where
sees
they
him
basically
fall.
recreate the Pietà.
Well, and she sees him fall, remember? And she
Oh
flashes
yeah.
back to when he was a kid, and it's like that part gets me every time. Like I'm crying just thinking about it. It's like that the pain, we talked about this before a couple weeks ago. But when you have a child, that your capacity for love and happiness and joy increases, 100-fold, but your capacity for true pain and suffering and sorrow, it increases so much, because when you experience the suffering of somebody that you love, especially like, when they're a child and they're so innocent, it's like that is the worst. It's the worst. It's the
When you're
worst pain.
when you're tuned in to a specific thing with such intensity, you hear both ends of the spectrum. You hear the
Yeah.
high notes and the low notes.
Yeah.
And it's just part and parcel. It comes with it.
Yeah.
There's that when it's so amplified, the highs are amplified and the lows. It becomes really bipolar.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You've got these manic, isn't life beautiful moments, and you've got these tragic, oh my gosh, everything is falling apart moments.
Yeah.
And that pietà that Mary had to go through, that had to be that kind of moment. But everybody has those moments, and that's why Mary is such a good example. I mean, she bore it with such dignity and never let herself falter, never let herself doubt. uh, I mean, she kind of knew that Jesus told her this is what had to happen, and so she said, okay, if this is what has to happen, then this is what has to happen. Just the same way Jesus said, hey, if this cup could pass me by, I'm
I'm game.
let's consider some options.
Yeah.
Because this looks like a bitter cup.
Yeah.
I'd rather not. And I'm sure Mary was the same way. Hey, if you say it's got to be that way, then that's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But this is going to hurt a lot. Yeesh.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting that there's a story told. We were talking about the saints and how the saints, most of the saints suffered horribly, and did it with dignity and never let it. Everybody gets put to the test. Everybody has the trial by fire. Father Dan always used to talk about Jesus is the refiner of souls. God is the refiner of souls. He gives us a life, and he checks our soul by putting us into this life and saying, "Are you going to do my will? Are you going to be pure? Are you going to be pure of heart, or are you going to be selfish?" And he sits there looking at us as we go through the fire, as we go through the burning off of all the impurities, all the sin, all the selfishness, everything that we have to go through, everything that we have to lose, everything that we have to give up and let go of is part of our life, makes us more pure and makes us more like Jesus. And so as God sits over the refining forge, he can see his reflection in us. When
Yeah.
he can see his reflection in us, we're ready to go.
Yeah. That's when enough of the driftwood has been burnt off.
Right. Enough of the dross. Yeah. Enough of the impurity. There was Saint. It might have been Saint Francis. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love him.
Very humble. Might have been a story told about St. Francis. Anyway, it was one of those itinerant preachers that was trying to convert Europe back when in the Dark Ages, and these two preachers went out, and they went to this town, and they started preaching, and they started telling people to repent and believe in the gospel, and amend their lives. And surprisingly, people didn't want to hear that. So they treated him badly and ran him out of town. And one of the preachers was really discouraged and said, "Oh man, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't want to get beat down. I just wanted to help people." And the other one was like, "Praise the Lord! Isn't it wonderful that we can suffer for the name?"
Yeah.
Which one was the saint?
Yeah, I mean, it's I had a moment this week where I was like, I was just like, I can't. I was having some suffering, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is
That's
really.
step one. My life is out of control.
But honestly, here's what
I
happened.
need to turn my life over to a higher power. That's step two.
It made me realize, like, I am not a good, like, parent, wife, person, whatever, most of the time. And I'm way worse when I'm suffering. And it was a very, like, humbling experience. And it just made me like, I truly thought, like, thank you, God, for giving me the suffering, because it's making me, like, remember how much I still have to do, how much I still have to have burned off of me before you can see your reflection in me. And, like,
How much pruning I need so I can bear good fruit.
and that's not like
Oh,
that's not like a fun place to be at, to be like, I am selfish and I avoid suffering and I don't want to, like, all that stuff. That's not like a fun realization, but it's an important one. And I think that, like, it was a good moment.
it's humiliating, and it brings that humility. We talked about humbleness and how it's hard to be humble, and when people get that sense of celebrity and they don't have any, and there's a real isolation in celebrity that you were talking about,
Yeah.
because you have to hold all your humanity back, all of your faults and failings, anything that people might judge or get upset about. You start to feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't share that. Maybe I should hold that back. I think it's the people who remain truly humble who are able to handle that stuff,
Yeah.
because they never take it personally. They never say, "Oh, it's about me." It's
Yeah.
always about God. It's
Yeah.
always about God speaking through me, uh, and working through me, and me getting out of the way.
Yeah.
The old John the Baptist saying about, "I must decrease so he can increase."
Yeah.
If we can do that, we're going to be saints.
Yeah.
If we can't do that, then we got to figure out, what am I holding on to? What is this self that I'm holding on to? It's an artifact, it's just
Yeah.
it's an accident of having this body and being in time and space and being in relationship. It makes me think that I am something. I'm nothing. I'm dust. I'm beloved dust, but I'm just dust.
Yeah.
And as long as I keep that in mind, that from the dust you came, and to the dust you shall return. That's the great thing about Lent, is having that time to reflect on, getting too big for my britches again. Need to
Yeah.
get need to check myself before I wreck myself.
And I think, like, another point about the whole celebrity humility thing is, like, you don't it's hard to know, as a celebrity, does somebody like me for who I am, Or is it just because of the way I look, or the way I can throw football, or the way I can sing, or like whatever it is? I
Or
mean,
because I've got $1 billion,
yeah,
or I've got a
exactly.
successful business,
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and I think that that is a beauty again of Mary loving Jesus, even at his weakest moment, where it's like, I believe that you are God, like, you know, you are the Son of God, because God came to me. And even though none of this makes sense, and now you're dead, and I didn't think,
I'm not going to deny you, even at the
yeah,
cost of, even if it threatens my life. I'm not going to deny you.
yeah,
That's what differentiated her and Peter. Peter was like, when the going got tough, Peter ran
Peter got
away.
going. Yeah,
Peter Peter booked it.
yeah, yeah. I also wanted to make a plug for this show called The Chosen, which I don't know if I've talked about on this show
You
before.
mentioned
I
it.
probably have. I love The Chosen. I think I only saw episode 1 of season 2, and I watched all of season 1. And I think the 4th episode of season 2 is just about to come out, so I'm a little bit behind. But I have to say, like, if
What's it on? Netflix or Hulu? Or,
it's actually on its own app, which you can watch for free. You can,
oh,
so if you download the Chosen app, you can watch it on there. You can also watch. They do, they've done like live streams on YouTube of the episodes, so you can watch them on YouTube. Although there's going to be like talking before it and after and whatever, but it's a really good show. And I think that one of the beauties of the show is what we were talking about before, about how it's hard to relate to God. It's also hard to relate to Mary and Jesus because they were perfect people. When you can see it in front of you on a TV screen, and see the interactions between Mary and Jesus, and see the interactions between the disciples and Peter, and you see Peter being an idiot and doing like messing up and doing and sinning and like making mistakes, and
just being so human.
like there's a great, I mean, the first episode of this season is great because 2 of the apostles, the sons of thunder, are like, you know, they have like hatred for the Samaritans. They're like, these Samaritans are not worth talking to and all this stuff, and you know,
Let's kill them.
but the show is just great because it makes it so real and so visual, and you can get like, you can see Mary walking and talking, and like, of course it's just a TV show, it's not a perfect representation, but I really like it. It's really good, and I think it brings the stories of the Bible to life in a way that you don't always get just from reading it, or
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
hearing it in church and whatever. It just makes it like, these were real people with real lives and families and stuff, and like, they did leave everything to go to follow Jesus. It's incredible. I love the show. I think it's really good. So there's
Yeah.
my pitch for The Chosen.
Was Peter married?
Yeah, yeah.
He had a wife, didn't he?
He
Yeah.
had a wife and a mother-in-law, and yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff. They show that in the in one of the episodes. They show when Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it's
she makes the best crab cakes.
I don't know how many
Wait, she's
crabs there
sick?
were in.
We can't put up with that. Heal.
Even if they did have crab cakes, Jesus wouldn't have eaten them. But
It's
fun.
Trefa.
Yeah. I also don't know how many crabs there were in like the Sea of Galilee, but whatever. She made the best tilapia.
Hey, you never know. So, freshwater crabs.
Maybe.
I don't know what. Apparently, there was some fish in the Sea of Galilee. They had a miraculous catch.
I've heard it was supposed to be like tilapia, but I don't know if that's true or not.
They might have wiped everything out after that miraculous catch. They might have cleaned out the. It's like, well, what's the point of going back and being a fisherman? We fished the whole thing out.
Yeah. That's a good part of the show too. They show that miraculous catch, and it's very it's a good show. I really recommend it. So I don't know, I should probably wrap it up here.
Yeah.
We've been talking for a while. Do we have anything
Anyway,
else about Mary?
we've worshipped Mary for long enough now.
So hopefully you if you didn't know about the Catholic view of Mary before, hopefully we've made it clear that while we don't worship her, we obviously honor her as
We
the
honor her. We revere her.
yeah,
We respect her, and we admire her, and we emulate her.
yeah,
She's the perfect disciple. And I think I've talked about the dream that I had before about riding on Mary's bus.
yeah,
That at one point I had a dream about getting on this bus, and it was this huge, inside it was huge. It's just this huge bus. And there was all this chaos going on all around us. But this bus was making its way through all this chaos just as smooth as possible. And it's like, Mary knows the way. She's the reliable guide. She can get us there.
yeah.
If I trust in Mary to help direct me, she's always going to direct me to Jesus. She's not an end in herself. She's a means to
She's
get
a GPS.
yeah, she's a GPS. She gets me closer to Jesus. She helps me to find my way.
That's why we call her like the morning star and all that stuff. Like she is. I heard in high school, I went to a conference and I heard, Mary is the moon, because the moon creates no light of its own, but it reflects the light of the sun. Like that is the perfect visual for what Mary is, and how Catholics view Mary, is that she perfectly reflects that light.
She's not the source. She's not the source of the light.
Yeah.
But she's a perfect reflection of the light.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what, once again, like you said, we're supposed to reflect God's face too. We are supposed to become like Christ. Like, we are supposed to become holy. That's our calling in life, and that's a scary calling, but we are supposed to reflect his light too, and that's why Mary is our role model.
We're supposed to be his hands and his feet. We're the mystical body, and the more that we can decrease ourselves and become part of that mystical body, the more that we can accomplish God's will at all times.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I hear my 2-year-old screaming, so I better sign off. But
I can't hear a thing. Oh, this is my bad ear. Oh yeah, I hear it.
All right. Well, I hope that this was edifying. I don't know. One of these weeks, probably next week, we're going to have an episode, but the week after, we're probably not, because we're going to be packing to move. But then hopefully we'll have some in-person effing with the Ineffables.
Then we'll do 3 or 4 in a week. We'll just have a marathon.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see what's going on, but we'll at least, it'll hopefully get back to regularity. So.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today, and
God bless everybody.
Yeah.
Be good. Be humble.